Issue 2, going postal.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this week accused President Trump of slowing mail delivery and handicapping the US Postal Service. While proposed Postal Service changes have now been rescinded by Postmaster General Louis St. Joy, Speaker Pelosi has recalled the House of Representatives for an August 24th hearing and is demanding DeJoy testify. But the story doesn't end there. President Trump denies the Democratic allegations, but insists mail-in voting carries many risks.
If you look at what happened in New York and Virginia and various other places, it's a catastrophe. They're losing 20% of the votes. Nobody knows what's happened.
Eleanor, your thoughts on President Trump's approach to this issue and whether Democrats are, creating a storm in a teapot with the mail concerns?
President Trump has clearly been laying the groundwork to question the legitimacy of an election if he doesn't win. And he has raised all of these questions about potential fraud with mail-in votes. And he's also trying to set up a differentiation between absentee ballots and mail-in ballots. And you can look at some recent elections in Arizona, for example. Martha McSally was ahead in her Senate race in 2018, but she lost after the mail-in ballots were counted. Polls show Republicans prefer to vote in person, Democrats favor mail-in. I think it's very obvious what the president is doing, trying to create the groundwork for challenging. And you have an election credibility or crisis task force operating at Georgetown that have done all these tabletop exercises about different outcomes. And the one common ground with all of the outcomes is that we're going to be counting for weeks, maybe months after. There'll be lots of litigation. People could well be taken to the streets on both sides. And so I think it's a very real issue. And the Postmaster General is a Trump appointee, a big Republican donor. If you look at the makeup of the Board of Governors of the Post Office, there is a former RNC chairman. DeJoy consulted with the White House before he met with members of Congress. So there's real potential here for mischief.
Now, I think I'll use Eleanor's word here, that's the potential. There's an enormous potential for fraud and there's potential for a debacle. We got to remember that the Florida election back in year 2000 was decided by 500 votes, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and divided the country. And the problem here, attendant problem here is, I don't deny the Postal Service is going to do a good job, but you're sending out mail to 100 million people, let's say. They send back in, say, I'd like a ballot. Then you send the ballots out, and then you send them in. Who picks them up? Who harvests the votes? All of these things could happen, not necessarily because of fraud, but they create problems, I think, that if this is a close election, it's going to be a real occasion and for the history books of the division of the United States and what Barack Obama was talking about, questions about the nature of democracy.
Clarence, there is a risk, though, isn't there, that whether it's fraud, which seems perhaps more unlikely, perhaps the president is overplaying that, but that the simple mechanics of delivering tens of millions or hundreds, more than 100 million pieces of mail, that this election may be brought into question with real legitimacy.
I don't think so. I have a lot of faith in the post office, not just because my great-grandparents happened to meet working at the post office, but we've had a post office in this country since we've had a country. And they do a remarkable job for all the knocks they take. I mean, for a matter of pennies, they will mail your letter all the way from Florida to Alaska or California to Massachusetts or whatever. And this is the fact is they're good at jobs like this. The fraud charge, and I've told you my adventures before about working on fraud investigations in Chicago. I've been familiar with voter fraud and charges of it for many years. And frankly, it's not in how you deliver the vote, it's how you count the vote where fraud occurs. And what little fraud that we do know about was caught. That's why we know about it. Okay. I mean, so there's always going to be a sore loser who's going to make some complaint about that, but I don't see it really happening.
All right, James, before we fly off to the Middle East, your thoughts?
Yeah, so clearly the Postal Service is in a new era with lots of new competitors, both physical and virtual. The challenge, though, now is that it's facing a great threat from this president who's clearly trying to undermine it in the eyes and the perspective of many many voters. Your question earlier to Clarence was with regard to this apparent surge, but it's been noted that even if half of all registered voters chose to vote by mail this time, it wouldn't result in as large a surge in the post as you get every Christmas in this country. So very clearly, the United States Postal Service, whatever challenges it has, can handle the surge that it would get with regards to this. I know we're talking about lawsuits here, but very clearly, I think the reason the Democrats are litigating this is because they're trying to demonstrate a point here. This is about public confidence. And it reminded me a little bit about that idea that you have newspapers with lots of flashy allegations, and everybody remembers the allegations, but they don't remember the retraction afterwards. So I think there's a real attempt here by the Democrats to adopt a belt and braces approach to defending the United States Postal Service.
All right.